There is a fundamental difference between the persona and the ego. And I am always hearing people speaking of the persona, yet they're calling it the ego. And people don't seem to recognize that there are roots in ancient Greek to these words that hold actual meaning. So I thought I'd share this little video to give us a perspective. What we call the ego is the seat of the self. It's the fundamental organ of being in the physical form. And it is the identity that structures experience on a fundamental and emotional field, sort of creating the sense of who we are. And then there is a persona, which is a reflection of these principles onto the physical, sort of like a shadow that is cast upon the earth. And we can consider this as a mental form and a structure, the ideas and thoughts that we associate with ourselves, the appearance of who we seem to be, but not who we are. The ego is who we are. This is fundamental to the actual identity. The persona is a series of patterns and habits of thought that we consider as ourselves. And so this is an anthropomorphic projection of desires that we hold about ourselves, that we've considered and justified through the logos, through the logical mind, and have created a narrative of who we think ourselves to be. The persona is a linguistic entity. The ego is a pre-linguistic state of being. The ego is fundamental to who I am. The persona is fundamental to who I appear to be. My actions and my behavior patterns are structured by the persona, though the fundamental nature of who I am is a quality-based structure, if I can use that word loosely. And this is the fundamental seat of the self, as the soul manifests through the ego. The ego, however, cannot interact with the world directly. So we can consider the ego as a manifestation of the emotional world, of the astral field. And this astral field requires a mental structure in order to be able to associate with a physical body. And this mental structure, this we can consider as the persona, the reflections of the ego, as bound by the structures of mind and thinking, becoming the patterns of who we believe ourselves to be. It's very important to realize the difference between the persona and the ego. And so when one is speaking of this person is egotistical, it means they are self-centered. But in general terms, this egocentricity that we are considering is really a belief pattern of structure, of thinking ourselves to be more than what we actually are. Because this is a pattern and a habit of the persona. It wishes to eclipse the ego. It wishes to hide the ego and take the credit for what the ego is and does. And what the ego does is to bring about the perspective and the potential for the emotions to hold the field of love and compassion in its highest form. The persona, though, it twists these into ideas, concepts, and puts these concepts on a proverbial throne and starts to deify the very nature that is being qualified by the presence of the ego. The ego is like a child it's emotional, it's pre-linguistic, and it's a fundamental state of being. And so it's very important for us to realize that we cannot judge the persona by the ego, and we cannot judge the ego by the persona. So the persona is an organ that is worn by the ego as a glove that is worn by the hand. Yet that glove hides the hand, and so we speak of the hand when actually we're looking at the glove. This is the BushWhisperer coming at you from the beach where I live, the water's edge, the beautiful place next to the Penguin Sanctuary, the southern tip of Africa, Science Town, Cape Town. Have an absolutely wonderful and lovely day. Don't forget to smile, because life is short. Celebrate life.